Hi friends, welcome to this quick hips flow. Let's get started at the top of your mat in Tadasana. Take a moment here to ground down into all of the corners of your feet. You can roll your shoulders up towards your ears, release them down on your back. Arms are down by your sides, palms facing forward, reach the crown of your head towards the ceiling. Just take a few deep breaths here. On your next inhale, reach your arms up overhead, and then exhale, bend your knees, lower your hips, sit back, Utkatasana chair. Hips reach back, sternum reaching forward. You can bring your hands into heart center, into prayer. Let's shift the weight into our right foot. Lift your left leg off of the mat. Shoot that left leg back. We'll come into a crescent lunge here. Inhale your arms up overhead. Right knee tracks over the right toes. Press through that back heel. And then take a moment here to kind of explore your pelvis position. See if maybe you could tuck your pelvis into more of a posterior tilt, tucking it underneath, bending through that back knee. And notice if you get a little bit of a deeper stretch here through the front of the left hip. On your next exhale, bring your right arm to your right hip and then exalt your crescent lunge. Reach that left arm back and up overhead, deepening that front side body stretch there, all the way up the left side of the front body. Exhale, cartwheel your hands down to frame that front foot. You can lower back down onto that back knee. We'll come into Anjaneyasana, low lunge. You can have your hands on your knee or reach your arms up overhead. And now shift that pelvis forward. Allow it to sink down towards the mat. Squeeze through your left glute there to deepen the stretch in the front of your left hip. Exhale, you can place your hands down on the mat or swing them behind you. Come into a half split here. Right toes reach forward. Nice stretch up through the backside of the right leg. And then just alternate between these movements here. So inhaling through that low lunge, hips come forward. Exhaling, shifting the hips back into a half split. Feeling a stretch there through the back of the right leg. Inhaling forward. If you take a class with me, we generally do this movement. I love kind of this fluid movement between the Anjaneyasana and the half split. I feel like it helps open up both sides of our legs. Let's stay here in the half split next time you arrive. Walk your hands to the inside of that right leg, and then we'll start to shift and face the left side of our mat. So spin that back shin, place that right foot down parallel to the front of the mat. You can walk your hands up and we'll come into gate pose. Allow your right hand to kind of slide along the outside of your right leg as you reach your left arm up and overhead, getting a nice lateral stretch here through the left side body. We can inhale and bring the arms all the way up and then exhale, plant them down on the floor in front of you. And you can walk your hands out. This is kind of like a gate pose, puppy stretch mashup. So reach your sit bones wide behind you. You can lower your chest down towards the mat. You can place your forehead down. Feel a nice stretch through the inside of your right thigh. And then from here, walk your hands back underneath your chest. We'll shift that left shin underneath and we'll just come back onto our seat. In kind of a wide-legged position with your left knee bent in. You can place your right hand down on the inside of the right leg and then just take an easy side bend here with the left arm. Open through the chest, reach that left arm up and over, ground down through that left sit bone. And then we'll inhale, come back up. We'll do a little hip mobility drill here. So let's get our legs set up. You'll want to be sitting, keep that left leg bent, bring the knee out into a 90-degree bend, and then bend the right leg into a 90-degree bend with the foot going behind you. So you're on the inner edge of the right foot and the outer edge of the left foot. I kind of think of this as almost like a cheerleader, a cheerleader stance back from my cheerleading days with the legs just a little bit wider. So try to get that 90-degree bend in both knees. And we're going to alternate from side to side in this position. So you can keep your hands down on the floor if you need a little bit of extra support as you're moving from side to side, or you could take an added challenge and keep your hands in prayer at heart center. So we'll simply just shift and have the right knee go back, the left knee go forward. So now we're on the inside of the left foot and the outside of the right foot. And we'll just alternate side to side in this position, using your hands here if you need to help in this rotation. And this drill works on our mobility in our hips, moving each leg through internal and external rotation. Helps get fluid in our joints and work on our range of motion. You'll probably move around, as you can see, a little bit on your mat as I am. That's all good. Let's do one more to the right. And then we'll just face the front of our mat. We'll bring our knees in front of us bent. If you need to rearrange your seat on your mat, you can. And we'll come into Navasana boat pose. So bend the knees, reach the palms up, facing in front of you. Sternum reaches forward. Your hip flexors are helping to draw your legs in towards your body. Core is helping you stabilize. And then you can grab behind your knees and we'll rock and roll. So rock all the way back, come all the way forward, plant your feet, and see if you can stand all the way back up without using your hands. If you need to use your hands, that's all good. So we're back at the top of our mat. And let's repeat that on the other side. So inhale, reach your arms up overhead. Exhale, sit back, Utkatasana chair. Bring the hands into heart center. Shift the weight into your left foot, hover that right foot, step the right foot back into that crescent lunge. Inhale the arms up overhead. Left knee is tracking over the right toes. Draw your navel into your spine. Reach your fingertips up. And then play around with the position of your pelvis here. See if you can come into more of a posterior tilt, tucking your pelvis underneath and bending that back knee. Feel a deeper stretch all the way down the front of your right leg. Inhale those arms back up. Left hand comes to left hip. Right arm reaches up and back to intensify that stretch. If you're having any knee pain, straighten that leg or come back down onto the back knee. We'll cartwheel the hands down to frame that front foot. Lower that back knee into Anjaneyasana. Uncurl the toes. Inhale, arms reach up. Allow your pelvis to sink down towards the mat to help open through the front of the right hip. And then exhale, fly the hands back or bring the hands down onto the mat or blocks. Half split. And then on your own breath here, just inhaling through Anjaneyasana, low lunge. Exhaling through Ardha Hanumanasana, half split. Every time you come into that half split, imagine that you're isometrically drawing that femur bone back into the hip socket. Like you're dragging that heel back towards your hip. Hold here for just a moment in that half split. Toes reach up towards the ceiling. And then bring your hands to the inside of that left leg. We'll rotate on our mat to face the right side. So right shin comes down, left foot parallel, left foot straight out to the side. You can inhale the arms up. Exhale, that left arm is just going to gently slide down the left leg as we bend. Nice side stretch on the right side. Inhale the arms all the way back up. Exhale, place them down in front of you. Walk the hands out. Gate pose, puppy stretch, mash up. Forehead could come down. Allow your chest to kind of descend down towards the mat. And then we'll come onto our seat. So shift your hips back. Swing that right shin forward into that wide-legged stance. So left leg is long, right knee is bent. Take a gentle side bend over to the left, placing your hand wherever is comfortable for you. And then work here on opening the chest up towards the ceiling, as opposed to just reaching over towards those left toes. And then we'll do that hip mobility drill again. So we can inhale and raise up. Work to get the 90-90 bend. In both of your knees, you're on the inside of the left foot, outside of the right. Hands on the mat or in front of you. And then let's work on those hip rocks back and forth. Taking each leg through internal and external rotation. Coming to your edge in your own range of motion. Maybe moving around on your mat a little bit. This one always makes me scoot around. And then we'll meet back at the front of our mat. We'll come back into that Navasana boat pose. Hold it here for a moment. If you'd like an added challenge, see if you can straighten your legs. And then grab behind your knees, rock and roll forward. We'll meet back in Tadasana. So let's rearrange on our mat. You can allow your toes to lift, place them all down separate on your mat. Ground down. And you can bring your hands to your hips. We'll shift the weight into our right foot again. Inhale and bring the left knee in front of you, bent 90 degrees into stork pose. And then let's work on externally rotating that left leg out to the side and back. This is kind of just like what we did seated on the mat. This external rotation, the hip goes out to the side. This last one we pulse out to the side, hold it, place that left foot behind you. We'll come into warrior two. So right heel lines up with the left inner arch of the foot. Bend through your right knee. Try to work on allowing your knee to track over the toes, not sinking in or pointing out. We want it to align right over our toes. Reach your arms in opposite directions. Gaze can be over the front middle finger. We'll inhale, reverse your warrior. Left hand goes down the left leg. Reach the right arm up overhead. And then exhale, we'll come into side angle. So you can place your forearm on your thigh, hand on a block or the floor. Reach the left arm up overhead. Long line all the way through the left side body. We're scooping that right hip underneath, opening through the right inner thigh, pressing down through the outer edge of the left foot. And then cartwheel that left hand down. We'll come onto the left toes, shift forward into a lunge. And then heel toe that right foot out towards the right side of your mat. You can have your hands on blocks here or palms down on the mat. And then just do some rocks forward and back here in our lizard lunge. So this is kind of like our legs in that crescent lunge, except the right foot is moved even further out to the right. This is a nice hip opening posture, helps open up here through the hip and the hamstring on the right leg, front of the hip on the left. And then find some stillness in your lizard. You can kind of heel toe that foot back towards the center, place the right hand down, lift that right leg up, three-legged downward facing dog. And then right away bend that knee and just take some hip circles, either direction. And then the other. And then straighten that right leg. Bring your knee in towards that right wrist. And we're going to place the shin down into pigeon prep. So you'll have your right knee towards your right wrist, outer edge of the left foot down on the mat. And this is where your anatomy will come into play for this pose. Some people will teach it where your front shin needs to be parallel to the front of the mat. And that just doesn't work for some folks with their anatomy, myself included. So find a position with that right shin that works for you. We want to be avoiding any knee pain on the right leg. You can always place a prop underneath that right hip to allow your hips to be square. You can place a block underneath the right hip or a blanket. Take a moment here and get a long spine. You should feel a nice stretch through the outer right hip. And then let's fold forward over that front leg. You can come onto forearms. If you need to shift that right kneecap back, stay off of the right kneecap. You can curl the toes and move that left foot back a little bit. And then just stay here for a couple breaths and allow this release. This is a fantastic stretch for the outside of the right hip and the glutes, even into the lower back. Just ensure that you're finding a position that's comfortable for you. Any pain in the hip or knee or ankle, you'll want to back out a little bit. On our next inhale, walk back up, torso upright, curl those back toes, lift the hips, downward facing dog. You can take a moment here and walk out your dog. And then we'll meet at the front of our mat in Malasana. So step the right foot to the outside of the right hand, pointing out 45 degrees, left foot to the outside of the left hand, and then lower the hips down towards the mat. You can sit on a block or stacked blocks underneath your hips if you need a little bit more support in this pose. And then I like to bring my hands into prayer and then place my triceps on the inside of my thighs, and I can press my thighs into my triceps into my thighs, and that kind of helps me open up a little bit more. Rocking side to side can kind of feel good too. And then we'll do some lifts and lowers here. So place your hands down on blocks or the mat, and then inhale, just simply lift your hips up. Allow the crown of your head to reach towards the floor. And then we'll come back into that Malasana. Place the hands. Lift the hips into this forward fold. And then we'll inhale, come back down into Malasana. You can rock side to side. Let's do one more lift all the way up to our Tadasana. So plant the hands, lift the hips, walk the feet back into parallel. You can have them meeting or hips distance apart, and then just simply roll all the way up. One vertebrae at a time. Into Tadasana. Place your hands on your hips. Shift your weight into your left foot. Bring that right leg out in front of you, 90 degrees into stork, and then work those external rotation pulses. Right knee out to the side. Squeeze through this left glute medius to help stabilize the left leg as you balance. Last one here, hold it out to the side. Place the right foot towards the back of the mat. We'll come into warrior two. So allow your legs to get set up. They're reaching in opposite directions. Arms reach in opposite directions. Shoulders stack over the hips. Scoop this left hip underneath. Gaze over the front middle finger. Flip that front palm. Inhale. Reach the left arm up overhead. Reverse warrior. And then exhale. Forearm to the thigh. Hand to a block or the floor. Side angle. Open your chest up towards the ceiling. Exhale, cartwheel the hands down to frame the front foot, come onto the back toes, and then this is where we will heel toe that left foot out to the left, high lizard lunge. Take those rocks back and forth. Let's do two more little rocks, and then find some stillness here. Let's take 2 breaths. And then you can start to walk the foot back towards center. Place the left hand on the outside of the left foot. 3-legged downward facing dog. Lift that left leg up high to the sky. Bend that knee. Take your hip circles. One direction. And then the other. And then bring your knee in towards your nose. Scoot it towards the left wrist. Place the shin down. Pigeon prep on the left. You may notice a difference between sides as you're doing this posture. So find the positioning of your legs that works for you. Get a long spine. Place any prop underneath this left hip that you might need to support you to have a square pelvis. And then exhale, fold forward over that front leg. You can release your head. Try to release any muscles that you might be contracting in this pose. Notice if you're kind of squeezing through that right glute. If you're holding any tension there, just let it go. Couple of breaths. And then slowly start to walk your hands back. Lift your torso. Curl those back toes, lift your hips, place that right foot, downward facing dog. Any little movements here, heels lowering, hips shimmying, whatever feels good. We'll come back to that Malasana, the yogi squat. You could step forward like we did last time, or if you'd like to try a little hop, you can join me here. I like to walk my feet in just a little bit and allow my toes to meet. Shift my hips back over my heels, bend my knees, gaze forward, hop, open the legs to meet on the outside of the hands. And then exhale, lower the hips, Malasana. We'll do a couple of those lifts and lowers here. So place your hands down on blocks or the mat. And then lift the hips, allow the crown of the head to reach towards the floor. It's a fantastic hamstring stretch. We'll inhale, lower back into Malasana. Let's do one more. Lifting the hips. And then lowering back into Malasana. Stay in your Malasana here. Use your hands if you need to. You could reach your arms in front of you if you'd like to try to come onto your seat with no hands. So just carefully and slowly lower on to your seat. The next pose we'll take, I'm going to turn to face you so you can see my legs, will be fire log. And this one can be really tricky depending on your anatomy again, the amount of external rotation that you might have in your hips. So let's bring the left foot out in front of you. You want your shin parallel here to the side of your mat. Flex through the foot, and then see if you can stack the right ankle on the right knee. So you'll want ankle on knee, knee on ankle. And as you can see, I have a lot of space here. This is one of the tricky poses that I'm not able to do. Some people can get their legs to just completely fold on one another. This is a really intense stretch for me with that deep external hip rotation. So if this is a little bit too much for you, you can always bring the left heel in towards the hips, and that'll allow you a little bit more room and maybe a less intense stretch. Or you can always straighten the left leg out in front and just take the external rotation on the right leg. So choose one that's calling to you today, and then stay here and you can just breathe for a moment. If you've chosen this position like I have and you have a lot of space between the knee and the ankle, you could always stick a block or something in there to give you a little bit of support if you feel like you need it. Just always noting that this is your body, your practice. You should never feel any pain. So if you're feeling that back out, choose a different modification. Take a couple more breaths here. And then we'll work cow face legs, which will be the opposite. It will be internal rotation of the thighs. So for this pose, I'll show you my little trick to get into this. I like to rock forward. The goal is to stack our knees on top of one another and have our feet reaching out to the side. So for me, coming forward a little bit to get the knees lined up seems to work. You don't have to do that if you're able to do that a little easier than I am. So you want to have the knees stacked, ground down through your sit bones. Your feet can be anywhere that's comfortable for you, reaching out to the sides. You'll want to grab onto the soles of your feet here. And this is cow face legs. This is too intense. You can always straighten that left leg underneath and then take the rotation with just the right leg. So if you're folded like I am, I like to do some hip circles here, just teeny tiny micro movements here. Going in one direction and then the other. This one can be very intense as well. And then we will release. So you can lean back onto your sit bones, bring your hands here to the left side of your body, and then press up and see if you can do the yoga party trick where you spin all the way around and allow your legs to cross the opposite way. If not, it's all good. You can just meet us here. Now the right foot will be on the bottom, shin in line with the side of your mat, or heel reaching towards your hip for a little bit less intensity. Stack that left ankle on top of the right knee. You may have space here like I do, that's all good. Or straighten the right leg. And we'll just take a few breaths here. If you're able to get your legs to stack in your fire log and you'd like to fold forward, you can take that here. Let's do 2 more breaths. And then we'll come into the cow face legs. So bring your right heel towards your hip. Work to stack your knees on top of one another. If you need to do the rock forward trick like I do, you can. And then, if you'd like to straighten the right leg, go for that as well. If you've got your legs folded and you want to take some tiny hip circles, you can. Going in one direction and then the other. Always listening to your body, taking a different version, modification, or just backing out completely if something doesn't feel right. Nice job. We can shift back onto our sit bones. I'm going to realign here on my mat. Have your knees bent in front of you, and we'll just lower all the way down onto our back. Slowly, one vertebrae at a time. You can hug your knees into your chest. If you'd like to roll out through your sacrum here, just simply roll your knees in one direction, legs in the opposite here. And then you can grab on to either yogi toe lock, so peace fingers on the inside of the big toe, thumb on the outside, or the outer edges of your feet, and we'll just take a quick happy baby. So bring your knees towards your armpits. Keep your shoulders, lower back, sacrum on the mat. And then imagine that your feet are standing on the ceiling almost. They're going to be parallel, flex towards the ceiling. If you'd like to rock side to side, you can. One last little hip opening here. And then if you would like, you can either take full Shavasana, so you can lower your legs into Shavasana, or you could meet me in Supta Baddha Konasana. So bring the soles of your feet together, lower them down, the outer edges of your feet are on the mat, and then allow your knees to just open wide. You can tuck your shoulder blades underneath, lift your chest, arms are out to the sides, palms facing up. This can feel nice at the end of our hip opening class. You can close your eyes. Release any control on the breath. And I will allow you to stay here in your Shavasana or your Supta Baddha Konasana for as long as you would like. Thank you for practicing with me today. Namaste.